So my friend Rob is getting married in December to his fiancée Helen, and I wanted to kind of record a song for them as a wedding present. So there was this piano piece that I used to play a few years ago that Rob had jokingly said at some point that that's going to be my wedding song. So the idea of today's video is that I'm actually going to record that for him and Helen, of course, as a wedding gift. And I'm going to do a string arrangement and stuff like that to give it, you know, those sort of classic wedding vibes. So when Rob proposed to Helen, they were in this amazing setting, top of a mountain, like sunrise views and that kind of stuff. And Rob got somebody to take a video of him proposing. So I've got this video, which is about 2 minutes long. So what I'm aiming to do is to come up with a piano arrangement to fit the length of that video. So when I've got the finished song, I can kind of put it alongside that video, and it can be, you know, like quite a cool gift. The song plus the engagement video as well. Okay, so I've got my iPad set up in front of me with the engagement video ready to play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video through a few times and play the piano alongside it. And I'm just going to try and come up with an arrangement on piano that's going to fit that rough 2 minute mark. Okay, so actually just playing that through the first time, I think I've got a pretty good idea of it. So there's kind of like this more introductory part to the song, and I think if I play that 4 times and then we get to more of a, you know, sort of chorus or an uplift in the song, that's kind of the moment where, you know, Rob goes down on one knee and it's, you know, it's a big moment in the video. So I think I've got a pretty good idea of how I can get that to sort of sync up nicely so that you know, the big dramatic moments in the video match up with the more thematic parts of the song too. And then we'll go from there. So I think if we get the piano arrangement right, we can just move straight on to the strings. So I've got the piano part down now. It's come out to be about 2.5 minutes, so it's a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but I think it should be okay. And yeah, I think it's sounding pretty cool. So on to the strings. So as this is a song that is kind of a wedding present, I think the most appropriate sort of string section that would go with this would be, you know, a classic sort of string quartet. So a cello, a couple of violins, and a viola, which I think is just like a slightly larger violin. Okay, so I've had a good listen through, and I've just been thinking about just the cello to start with to get, like I said, that sort of the bass side of things sorted first. That's how I would typically build up, you know, a song that I might normally write, you know, more of kind of rock and roll song. I'd get the drums and bass, that sort of low end, sorted first before moving on to the higher register instruments like the guitar. So also what I do when I'm trying to come up with sort of ideas like this is sometimes it's good just to take yourself away from the instrument, and I just grab my phone and I maybe just sort of have the song sort of playing in my head, and I just use the voice notes app on my phone to kind of record some possible ideas, some melodies. Not all of them work, but in this example, yeah, I went away, just sat down, had a cup of tea, and you know, recorded some ideas. And one of them I thought was pretty cool, so I just took it to the keyboard, and yeah, it does sound like it's going to work out. So sometimes it's a combination of, you know, playing on the actual instrument and thinking about, you know, what might work and trying out different sounds, and also like taking yourself away from an instrument and just following the music in your head and following your inner ear to get, you know, a result that might be much better than something just based on the mechanics of the keyboard. So I've got an idea for the cello, at least for the verse and maybe for the next sort of section. So I'm just going to play with that now, and then ultimately I'm going to try and record something and see how that turns out. Okay, so just recorded a couple ideas there for the cello, which I think are sounding pretty good. So I'm just going to work on those on the MIDI side and try to get things basically lined up how I think they're going to sound. And then there's this sort of second half of the chorus section almost that is just slightly different, and I think yeah, maybe a slightly better counter melody on the cello here. Maybe something like this would go quite nicely. I think something like that could go quite nicely. So I'm just going to try that out now, record it, and see how it turns out. So I think I've got the main cello part down, so I've just moved on to the viola. So I'm just going to introduce that during the chorus, so it's not going to have any part at the beginning of the song. So I'm just basically going to follow sort of the bass line, similar to what the cello's doing in the chorus, but I'm going to sort of double the parts. And I'm going to use this fortepiano style sound of the viola to get that real swell to help with the uplift. So let's see how it sounds. Alright, so the cello doesn't sound that great at the end there, but I quite like how that viola part's coming along. Yeah, it just so happens that that particular sound sounds really nice at the end there. It kind of fully plays out and goes really well with the track. So I'm definitely going to keep that. Okay, so I think I've figured out what I want to do for the last part. So yeah, just working on the violins, but with the last part of the song here, because it's kind of going to be following some of the piano chords like I was saying, I'm going to try and actually record kind of like I would play it on piano. So I'm going to capture 3 parts at once, because I'm just going to be playing the chords. So I'm going to basically be capturing the viola and both violins for the final section. And then what I'll do is I'll just duplicate those MIDI tracks, and I'll separate out the bits that I need for each of those instruments, so they've each got a separate track afterwards. Okay, let's see how this goes. That wasn't quite perfect, but I'm going to work with that, maybe record that a couple more times just to get it perfect, and then I'll probably do the rest just on the computer, so let's try and finish that up. So I've got an arrangement now that I think is working pretty well. So yeah, I'm just going to stick my headphones on and let's listen through this together. So piano starts very simple, very soft. And then we get the cello coming in, just the cello. I'll have this very subtle to start with, I think. So I'll get it to build up in the track a little bit more. Everything else comes in. So these violas have got this really nice swell to them. I'll try and make that transition a little bit more subtle between the notes. Yeah, I really like that swell. Violin's doing a similar thing here. All together. I just added those few piano notes there. Helps with that transition to the next section. I played around a little bit with the MIDI data here for each of the instruments, just to get all 3 parts sounding cohesive. those like long sustained notes, and that's the end. So that's how it's sounding thus far. I think it sounds pretty cool. So yeah, I'm just going to be doing some fine tuning of the arrangement, and then I'll get more into the production side of things to try and make it sound as good as it can be. Thanks for watching the video. Stay tuned next week for part 2, where I'll be going over all the production details of the song, and you'll get to hear the final version of the full track. See you next time.